All right, and then we'll go back to the agenda as I call the meeting to order. Yolo County Fire Safe Council on Wednesday, May 24th. So I want to welcome everybody. And again, if it looks like we're going to be voting on some things, so we want to make sure we got all the members accounted for, make sure we have a quorum. So if possible, put your name in the chat or change your name on your ID or in the chat. I guess before we get started, I'd like to say hello to Jack as our vice chair, if you want to make a short introduction.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Snyder. I'm the new fire chief for the city of Winters. I've been here since February. It's been a pleasure to come back home and serve the community, and looking forward to the opportunity to serve as the vice chair for the group.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. So, meeting's called to order. So the action is to approve the agenda. The agenda is on your screen. I'll pause a moment, but we need somebody to please move.
HSS will move. Oh, Don, do you want to make the motion? I'll second.
I'll second it, Kate. You were there first.
All right, teamwork there. All right, I'll move to approve the agenda.
All right. To approve the agenda, all in favor say aye.
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 And then as before, any opposed, I'll wait a moment so everybody can get off mute. It appears, motion passes unanimously. Second action, to approve the minutes. Hopefully everybody took time to read them in advance from the April 26th meeting. Do we have a motion for that?
I have a question about the minutes. This is Jesse from KP Valley. There was something in the section reports that said that Tracy would be in Esparto preparing the migrants for doe season. Is that
DOE?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay, I'll fix that.
I couldn't even think of what, I mean, unless we're talking about deer.
Right.
But I'll move to approve them with whatever minor change it is that rationalizes that phrase.
I didn't notice.
That's pretty funny.
All right. All right. So any other edits or none? So if we have Jesse motions to approve the minutes as edited or as will be edited. If we can get ahead of ourselves, we have a second.
Ken Britton, West Winters, I'll second that.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call the question or present. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes. All right, and we're now up to member announcements.
I have two things. The first is so I think Reveille, you're the only person here, and Dawn from Solano County. But at the Solano County Fire Safe Council, there was a comment from OES about the high-low sirens. The sheriff goes through with the high-low sirens. Does that actually happen? Have you guys heard that happening on the ground? This was something that we wanted to know.
I have not heard that yet, but they've told us to be prepared, and even last summer they told us that. I have not heard it yet,
Okay.
but it definitely, I think, would get people's attention if it happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
so my experience of it was if they drove up each and every driveway and notified house by house,
Oh, they
So
did,
there
but they
weren't-
didn't have the high-low siren going on.
I didn't hear, I didn't hear
Okay.
sirens.
Okay, very interesting. All right, thank you. And then the other thing is we have a new face in the crowd. I'd like to introduce or have Jorge Zavala introduce himself. We encountered him a couple of meetings ago in Solano County Fire Safe Council, and he's joining us now too as well. So Jorge, if you could introduce yourself, and Daniel, that would be great.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Uh-oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, we have still learning Zoom after 3 years during the pandemic, right? So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the warm introduction. My name is Jorge Zavala. I'm the Disaster Services Program Manager with Catholic Charities of Yolo, Solana. You'll see I have some Listos information here in the background, right? The 5 steps: prepare, get alerts, and set up a bag, right to go bag in the stay box. Very important, helping out a neighbor or friend in need. And so just want to introduce my colleague up, talk real briefly about what we're up to when Kate does her report out. But just real briefly, we just had a welcome back event for the 3 migrant centers. About 700 people attended, 200 families or more from that work in ag, providing them with disaster preparation resources. And I believe that's the edit that was on the minutes, is that Tracy Kettleman was staffing the Listos table there from 10 to 2 on April 29th. And so that's all I'm going to share for now, and I'll go ahead and give the opportunity to Daniel to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you all for the time and the warm introduction. Yeah, so my name is Daniel Soria. I work as the emergency preparedness educator here, specifically in Yolo County. So a lot of my work is just within Yolo County learning past few months, the layout of Yolo County disaster services and things of that nature. But thank you for having the opportunity to attend the meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We're glad that you're here.
This is Kate from IHSS Advisory Committee. Vance Taylor, who's the Cal OES chief of the Office of Access and Functional Needs, just sent something out yesterday about the 2023 National Access and Functional Needs Symposium, which brings together members of the disability community and emergency managers, and it'll be online July 11th and 12th, and it's from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific. It's free, and I'll stick a registration link in the chat.
Cool, thank you. Tracy?
Hi. Well, first I wanted to echo what Jorge and Danielle said. It was a super cool event up in Madison a couple weeks ago, and I was able to bring some of the Fire Safe Council RCD literature, so that was really cool. And second, I just put in the chat, there's a forest stewardship workshop happening this summer. It's called Solano and Sacramento counties, but it's definitely for Yolo County landowners as well. So any landowners with forested land, oak woodlands who want to learn about land management, and it's just a really powerful workshop series. It's in the evenings. I forget what day of the week this one is on Zoom, and then there'll be one field day, I think in July in Solano. So highly recommended. And you get, if you go through it, you actually get funding for a registered forester to come out to your property one day and take a look around and help you kind of get started.
Is it directed towards landowners more than agency folks?
Definitely, it's for landowners, but some agencies do it to understand, to learn more about land management and permits and timber harvesting and markets and all that kind of stuff. And definitely there's a lot of talk about fire and managing for fire. So
this is Karen Young. The workshop, this one is on Tuesdays, Tracy.
Anyone have any other announcements?
Time for reports. You got that.
All right, my favorite. I'll really quickly go through this. You guys all received this last week. Just our events. So our meeting is happening today. Our next meeting will be determined at the end of this meeting. Our Prescribed Burn Association meetings have been going on the third Thursdays, and Bailey can talk more about that. Severa is every Wednesday, more or less. West Winters had their meeting last week, and hopefully Ken can report out on that. Solano Fire Safe Council's next meeting is June 19th. PV on June 12th. And then our brown bag meeting, which can often have some really useful information, is tomorrow. So if you have any interest in that, then I'll send you the link. And then we won't need to have this status update any longer, but I do like seeing the completed. So if you want any more events, go to the events calendar on our website. And that is it for now. And Karen, you have a question or addition?
Yeah, just quick correction. The Solano Fire Safe Council meeting is also on June 12th, not June 19th.
Oh, okay.
Moved it a week early to avoid conflicting with the
Oh,
June 12th.
okay. And then is the Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council on the same day?
Yes, unfortunately, we conflict with that now.
Congrats. Okay.
But they will have food at theirs, and ours is going to be on Zoom. So yeah.
Okay, good to know. So that's it for my coordinator report, or you know what? I do this every single time. I totally jumped over OES, and Kristen is not able to be here today, but here's a project update, and I see Chris Estrada is here. So Chris, do you have anything to add to this update?
Regarding Kurt's section, he mentioned that so the tree vendors have started doing their revisits in winters, and they're continuing doing that. They've also established a scope of work and the costs as well. And let me see what else. So things should start to happen now, and he'll be reaching out to the KP Valley partners as well, following afterwards. He did mention that he's been having troubles with his email, so once he gets that fixed up, he'll be reaching out to everyone now who has been reaching out to him. And then regarding the Ag Pass, so I'm working on the second draft version of it already. We're kind of dividing it between two separate passes, one of them specifically for livestock and the other one for agricultural. And within both of them, we're splitting it between commercial owners and small/residential owners, just so that we can be inclusive to everyone within our community. And yeah, so I just submitted that second draft to our partners, and they're currently reviewing it. So within 2 or 3 weeks, we should have like another new update, and I'll update you guys all with our agricultural pass.
Awesome, thank you.
You're
I talked to Kurt last week, and so he is a part-time employee, and he was running out of hours, but they will reset at the beginning of the next fiscal year, which is July 1st, and he will be able to dig in more detail on managing these projects.
Yep.
Cool. And Neil, I see your hand up.
Yes, just question is, where have they started with the projects in West Winters? I haven't seen them, so I was just curious where they started.
That I'm not too sure about, but he did mention that they started doing the revisits a couple of days ago. I'm not sure when that started. So yes, unfortunately, I don't have more information regarding that.
I've heard one rumor, not really a rumor. My neighbor said that Kurt had been around the second time on Positas. He's got quite an urgent chipping problem, and I think his is early.
Great.
Cool. Okay, so thank you, Chris. Sorry to jump in ahead. So back to RCD. So Kate has an update for us on grant opportunities on tracking.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Tanya, could you please enable, or whoever's signed on as Yolo County, will you please enable me to share screen so I can share my screen? Thank you. Okay, not a lot new coming through because we're heading into fire season. But for grants with deadlines, we have a couple due in June. One is the Defensible Space Assistance Grant Program. I believe Tanya sent this out via email. Open to local government agencies, tribes, fire safe councils, and other 501c3 nonprofits. And it's defensible space focused. $4 million available, 500,000 is the maximum award. So about 8 grants statewide. They're only accepting one grant application per county. And the other one that the Gwenda Grange, I believe, is still interested in getting set to apply for is this PG&E Resilience Hubs grant program. And if any other communities are interested, that one is due on June 23rd. And again, oops, sorry about that. It's not what I was looking for. Again, I'd like to remind everyone that the ongoing opportunities always available. Some of these have deadlines that are quarterly, but you can always be preparing. So if any expenses or projects come up that you might need a little money for, check out this page because there might be some organization on here that would be happy to supply funding for your project. And then I wanted to report back on, and this is where Jorge and Daniel come in. As you may recall, last fall, we applied for and received some funding through the Fire Adapted Communities Network for HEPA filter distribution. And we've partnered with Catholic Charities, Yolo and Solano on that. And this week they received 19 air purifiers. And I believe they were set to distribute them today. And I will stop sharing and I will open it up to Jorge for an update on what happened.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, Kate. So thank you for the opportunity also to connect this much needed resource to families out here in the Madison area. And so as I briefly shared earlier, we're in relationship with 3 different migrant centers, the one out in Dixon, Madison, and also in Davis. And so part of the whole process is to work within the Yolo County Housing Authority to get permission to go to the grounds and not interfere so much with what they got going on. But through some little hiccup paperwork error, there was a little mishap with the calendar for today. They do have a resident council meeting. However, we're going to be able to schedule another day and go in and deliver these filters. 19 families that we've identified with small kids in the area. We reached out to Communicare to see if we can identify some families with respiratory issues already, but maybe with this little buffer of time, we can identify those as well. So either way, we are in relationship with them and we'll provide you enough here in June. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And it's been wonderful. I just met and have been working with Jorge and Daniel somewhat in the past couple of weeks, and they are wonderful partners out there working for our migrant ag workers. And we really appreciate the partnership and hopefully we'll be able to carry it forward and continue to assist with fire preparedness and smoke protection for the people who really need it. So thanks a lot, Jorge. Really appreciate it and look forward to finding out what's the next date and seeing those distributed. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so our next report is from Bailey Adams, who's coordinating our Prescribed Burn Association and has been busy.
Hi, everybody. Oh, there we go. Yeah, as Tanya said, I am the coordinator for the Yolo Prescribed Burn Association. We've been holding monthly meetings on the third Thursday of the month. Our upcoming event is going to be our first demonstration burn. This is a 30-acre grassland burn out in Cape on a rancher's private property. The burn is tentatively scheduled for June 17th, and we're inviting members of the community and landowners who would like to come out and participate or observe. So we are requesting that people fill out a sign-up sheet so that we know who all will be attending. I'll drop or Allie will probably put the link for that form in the chat if anybody's interested in more information on that. And yeah, that's just our upcoming event that we have, and we will be letting everybody know via our email list what events will follow with upcoming monthly meetings and further burns. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for Bailey?
Hey, I got a question for Bailey. This is Jesse from Cape Valley.
Hey, Jesse.
What kind of attendance are you looking for this? Is this open for like anybody in the area who wants to come and see it? And can my department help to promote it, advertise, like get people interested to go out and see the work that's being done?
Definitely. And actually you will be receiving a call from me soon. But yes, as far as who all can attend, it's open to everyone. You don't have to have previous experience. There's going to be some opportunity for participation, but there's also, if people just want to come out and kind of watch, that's also welcome. We're just asking that everybody who's going to come out fill out this form so we know how many people to expect. And everybody who comes on the day of the burn will be asked to sign a liability waiver for access to this person's private property. But yeah, the more people, the better. So that's great. And you can go ahead and share that form with anybody.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very cool. Okay. Allie has an update on outreach and the programs that she is running for a safer community.
Hi, everyone. So this will be just a quick update for outreach. I just sent out, I think it went out on May 15th, a newsletter that was filled with a bunch of resources for wildfire preparedness. It had information on home hardening and defensible space, and how to get it connected with alerting systems, some information on our programs and all of that. So if you know anyone, or if you received that newsletter, please send it out, forward it to whoever you think might need it, and then they can get in touch with me if they want to sign up for our newsletter to get it directly to their inbox, or they can go on our Fire Safe Council website as well. And then program updates, we still have the address sign and chipper program going. We just ordered a brand new batch of signs. So there's probably around 200 signs out there in the community that have gone out to landowners out there on properties. And then we have a bunch more in the office that are waiting to be waiting for people to request them to be sent out to the community. And then our next chipper day is actually this Friday, May 26th, up in the Cape Valley. We've identified 5 different properties that need some help with chipping debris from fuels reduction and hazardous fuel reduction and defensible space work. So that'll be happening this Friday from probably like early 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. is generally when they're out there. And yeah, that's pretty much my update. Open to questions if anyone has any.
Cool. Thank you. Well, folks, spread the word because outreach is always a thing. Yeah, Jorge, you had a question?
Yeah, can I perhaps get some of the signage or information just as we do outreach and inform people about disaster preparedness? It'd be great to just have another tool in the tool bag, right?
Yeah, I'll connect with you and send that information to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also recommend that you go to the Yolo County Fire Safe Council website, yolofiresafe.org. There's all sorts of information on there. Hey, Ladish.
Ali, that was an amazing set of resources that you sent out in the newsletter. Thanks. That was great. And having it all in one place made it easy to forward to other people. And thanks also for the replies in the thread. I think it was like you, Tanya, Ken, and me about the Winters cameras, and that the Winters cameras don't seem to be on the new whatever it is, Alert California camera system that's through UC San Diego, I think. And I looked recently and it looks like they still aren't there, and there isn't even the dot for Winters. Were you able to ferret out any information about if those are going to be transferred?
I didn't actually. So what Kate's referring to is Alert Wildfire is the wildfire spotting system that we actually used to have linked on the Fire Safe Council website, and they've switched over to Alert California, which is the one that's ran by UC San Diego. And yeah, we noticed that those Winters cameras were down. And Tanya, did you get to the bottom of that?
I didn't actually. I was hoping that if the West Winters Fire Safe Council met with Chief Snyder, that he would know, but it looks like Tracy has.
I can make it
some
happen.
intel.
Yeah,
Okay.
email me and I'll get it up the food chain.
Okay, thank you.
That would be great. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Any other questions for Ali? So our next report is from Karen Young from Solano County.
Hey. So thank you, Tanya. As I mentioned earlier, the Solano Fire Safe Council meeting is coming up, next one on Monday, June 12th. And at our most recent meeting earlier this month, we had a discussion on alert tools, public warning, and situational awareness tools. There will be a summary of those resources going out in an email and posted on the Solano Fire Safe Council website soon. So keep an eye out for that. And the contractor for the Solano County Community Wildfire Preparedness Plan is still accepting feedback. So if you have been following the Solano CWPP process, the feedback window for that is still going, and I will dig up that link and put it into the chat box here. That is it from Solano for fire-related things. But if you're looking for just a feel-good environmental type event coming up, World Environment Day is happening on June 3rd. There will be an event celebrating that at Lake Solano Park. And I'll put that link in the chat too.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to our community fire safe council reports, Cape Valley, Moira.
Hello, not a lot to announce other than that we have some Sivera is joining us for some work party events on defensible space for 3 of our seniors who are unable to do that kind of work. And we have those coming up to this weekend and one on June 4th. Other than that, nothing else to report.
Cool, thank you. And then Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council, Reveille.
Hi, we're having a potluck on the 12th, and it's the theme there is show and tell about things that people are using that are working well for them, and also showing examples of what to use and what not to use. Like for on the plus side for me, as I have a fire extinguisher that holds water and I can charge it with my little compressor. And the other thing is the last burn pile I had, I was wearing plastic shoes and burned a nice big hole in my shoe with an ember that popped out. So we've had one of these events before and it worked very, very well. Is that, the good, the bad, and they're like, oh my gosh, how stupid was that?
That sounds fun. Thank you. And West Winters Fire Safe Council.
That's a really good idea, Reveille. We might have to do something like that ourselves. I'm sure everyone has stories. Yeah, so we just had our meeting and not a whole lot to report. The big event was a change of leadership, that I am now the chair, and we are going to be a little more formal. We're actually going to set up some bylaws. We've always been very informal and flat and relaxed in our structure, but we're gonna tighten things up a little bit and have a formal rotation of leadership on an annual basis. But for this year, I am the chair, and those of you who have contact information for the Fire Safe Council might wish to update that fact.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, that is it for reports. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, well, we'll just move into the next item, which is an action item, but I'd like to give a little background. So I'm going to share my screen. And I know you can't read this. I just wanted to show you there's a list of projects and there's 12 of them. And now I'll make it bigger so that we can actually read this, but a little background just to remind folks. So in March 2022, the County of Yolo received $1.5 million of early action funding. And that was broken down between different projects. There was a bunch of money for some veg management, and $800,000 was, and this was all approved by the Board of Supervisors based on a recommendation from us at the Fire Safe Council to the Office of Emergency Services, who presented this to the Board of Supervisors. $800,000 to study the feasibility of a siren system. There was some background work that was done by OES. And as you remember, last month, we heard a presentation from T-Mobile talking about them boosting up their system. But it looks like the emergency responders mostly were saying that a siren system would be really confusing because a siren might go off and no one knows what it's for. And there was basically sort of a behind the scenes feasibility, but the study actually wasn't done, which means there's $800,000, which OES has suggested get spent on something on the ground. So I just want to walk everybody through, again, more background. So when we applied for the wildfire protection grant funding from CAL FIRE, we went through our CWPP project list and picked out all the ones that would be eligible for that grant, which is in the state responsibility area, the high fire zones in our West County. And then, so I took that list and narrowed it down even further based on, feasibility, because $5 million and $800,000 are a bit different, and came up with this list that I'd like to walk you through. So, and these are everything on this list is in the CWPP except for one project that I added from the wildfire protection grant. So the first one is just our chipper program, putting more money into that pot to keep that project going. And I also want to point out that the estimated budget is a total, at this point, I don't want to say total, but a bit of a guess. We have not done scopes of work or gotten estimates. So just keep in mind that this dollar amount could change, but it's just a rough, we think we need about this much. So just maintaining the chipper program. And then the next project, which was in the wildfire protection grant, is creating buffers around the north and western end of the town of Winters, which is just a bunch of grassland, and a north or west wind could just blow a bunch of embers into the neighborhood and start a fire. So we talked about either doing some prescribed burning or grazing and keeping those grasslands very short or not at all. The next one, this is a project that got added to the wildfire protection grant. And it's, as most of you know, the community of Rumsey residents were not able to renew their fire insurance through their regular insurers. And so we thought a buffer around the town and supporting that town or community becoming a fire safe community and possibly getting a reduction on their insurance, or maybe even getting their regular insurers back could be a thing. So working with Stivera and with Chief Capitania, we wanted to make some fire safety buffers. So that's a big chunk right there. The next one is, so in our CAL FIRE grant, we requested some funding for Stivera to do defensible space work, which they're already starting. And this could get really big. And so we thought we'd put some money in there to assist Stivera with that work. And this would just be to hire more hands, more workforce to help with that, should it be needed. This next project, basically, if people are volunteering to bring out their heavy equipment and make buffers and defensible space, they would like to be compensated for their diesel fuel for their big equipment. So I put that in there. And then another project that was suggested, which seems like a really good idea, is, so we have our annual burn that CAL FIRE does, which is actually starting next week. I should have put that in the announcement, along Highway 128, protect the community in the grasslands area. But there's also a project that was proposed to do mechanical veg removal up in the canyon where you can't really do a burn line. So that is West Winter State Highway 128 mechanical vegetation control project. And then another project that has come up a few times is to treat the fuels along Dry and Puda Creeks going into the town of Winters. Those are basically alleyways for fuels or fires. A lot of the time in the afternoon, the wind blows straight out of the west, and that could just blow a fire right into town. Again, the Rumsey ditch vegetation management comes up repeatedly, and I know there's been some movement on that. CAL FIRE did the south side of that road and Rumsey Canyon Road, but the ditch is still a bit of a mess. And then another project is, this one was super popular in the community meetings, is doing some prescribed burning and veg management along Highway 16 in the Capay Valley. And then one that's near and dear to me and Allie's and Neil's hearts is the state highway fire awareness signs. This has been all priced out and some a couple $1,000s added for inflation, but to have the signs are already designed, to have them built and installed. And the sites are all picked out. Basically, the gateway to a highway or to the Lake Berryessa and to the casino is traveled by a lot of people from out of the area who may or may not have any idea that they're going into a high fire zone. And then another really popular project was a fuel break task force and a hazard ID and mapping task force, which this is on here. We can do that, start it using funds that we already have, but I want to just put it on here because so it'll get going. And then finally, the Capay Valley Fire Protection District had mentioned doing some planning for evacuation into the eastern hills from the Capay Valley, so we could take some time to map and maybe even improve some shallow water crossings across Cache Creek. So that totals it to $800,000. And keep in mind that this is estimated budget, hasn't been costed out yet, and there will be some overhead costs to pay a staff person, very likely me, to manage the projects, because that does take time. So that is our proposal, and the next steps would be after we discuss this and potentially approve it, is for the RCD to work with the Office of Emergency Services to get this before the Board of Supervisors and explain and justify why we're not doing a siren system study, feasibility study, and then to have the Board of Supervisors approve to redirect the funding. And that's actually already on the agenda for the 6th of June, Yolo County Board of Supervisors meeting. So that is my summary. I bet there's a few questions. I think I will stop sharing so we can all see each other. Ken.
Yeah, that's a nice looking list. It looks like it spreads the money around pretty well. I am curious about one specific project, and which is, I think, sounds very important, which is the fuel reduction in the Dry Creek and Puda Creek corridors coming west out of Winters. And I've always looked at those and with unease. How far west of Winters up Puda Creek is that project slated, or sort of just hand wavingly decided to go? What's your thinking there?
To be determined. So as you remember from last month, we had requested a bunch of funding from CAL FIRE, and that was reduced quite a bit to just planning. So we will be able to use some time, should that be granted, to plan that better. Because if you remember in the whole Community Wildfire Protection Plan process, when we come up with our list of projects, we don't plan them specifically out. But now we can. So TBD.
Yeah, so I would like to make a push for taking it as far west as possible.
Okay.
Because the farther west is where a lot of the ignitions happen, and it's difficult for firefighters to get in there. So the maximum benefit would accrue from taking it the farthest from town that you can get it, up to probably all the way out to Lake Salado, I would think, because that whole
makes sense.
corridor is quite thick. But there are some resource issues that you would know better than I do, which is
Oh,
about
definitely. Yeah, there'll be some
habitat.
permitting. And
Yeah,
I
habitat
definitely.
and bird nests and all that. There's
Oh,
a
yes.
lot going on in that canyon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thanks.
I would also work really closely with the Winters Fire Department and utilize their expertise on that section too. So Neil, or Ken, does that answers your question?
It does. Thank you.
Answers, not answers. Neil.
Yes, just to follow up a bit on Ken's. And then, first of all, let me just compliment you. I think you have a nice set of projects, and all of them are important. One, my first question is really, estimates don't often meet reality. And how is as the bills start coming in and going over the estimates, do you have a strategy for prioritization? And also, I'm worried about the original funded projects. They were again based on estimates, and once you get working and getting the work done, they may go over budget. And so I assume you have some strategy for how to manage that these are not hard categories, that they'll be shifting around a bit to meet the reality.
I think that is very true. You know, we will have to get estimates and scopes of work and all that. But right now, I almost hesitated to put the dollar amount on here, because it was like, well, it's just a guess. But we should, some things like the Severa, helping Severa with D-Space might not even be needed. I think this body and local fire officials would be the best to help prioritize as we get going.
And one other comment, just quickly on Puda Creek. It's really the boundary between Yolo and Solano County. And so that would, I assume, be a joint effort of some sort.
That would make sense.
They received funding from Dodds as well.
They did.
So
Yeah.
that would be an appropriate joint project.
Agreed. Yeah, it all starts with the proposal and then there's tons of detailed questions, and that's why it's good to have a lot of input. And no, there's not yet, Tracy. Not a link to the document that we're discussing just yet. I wanted to walk through it with everybody and get comments and go from there. So Moira.
I apologize. I joined the meeting about 10-15 minutes late. So this may have been brought up. Do we have any idea when the early action funding is going to even be released?
Well, yeah, so it sounds like from our conversations with OES is that funding was in a pot in the county and it's being moved to the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. Kurt's hours will be reset because he has a very limited number of hours that he can work, and he was originally tasked with managing these projects. So it sounds like July 1st is when things are going to get going on the projects that have already been approved and that we're sort of starting a little bit.
Isn't Kurt returning to work the end of this year rather than July?
Well, it's a fiscal year, which ends June 30th. So
Okay.
he has, I want to say 900 hours, and he has spent most of them, and then those reset July 1st. Hopefully that makes sense. Kate Laddish.
So I second or third or fourth or something, the enthusiasm about looking at Puta and Dry Creeks and the vegetation management in the Winters area. And I just wanted to put out, so the City of Winters Natural Resources Commission has Puta Creek, especially actually the Puta Creek Nature Park, as one of its areas of focus. And at those monthly meetings, it brings together partners that are working in Puta Creek, and those meetings are on third Mondays of each month at Winter City Hall. And the next two are going to actually have a focus on Puta Creek. And so I'll put on my Natural Resources Commission hat for a second and say, those might be good ones to,
Agreed. When we
consider
get into
sending someone to, even if the focus ends up being in the July one, kind of on the nature park. I think what you're talking about would have I think it'd be a really important part of the conversation, and people would be excited to hear about that.
Agreed. Yeah. For sure. So yeah, this is pretty general at this point. I don't know if we want to try to prioritize now or ask this for this list to be approved by the Board of Supervisors with prioritization to be done by this body. Yeah, but other questions or comments?
This is Tara. I do have a quick question. First, I appreciate the background and the pivot based on the feedback given. And I love that this list comes from projects that were already collected through community feedback. So I think this is a positive direction. My question is, any of these, do they have high probability of getting a grant elsewhere? Because I feel like these funds are one-time discretionary funds. I mean, discretionary of within this category of supporting fire prevention work and response to LNU fire. But I guess when it comes to the prioritization, if one of these would have a high chance at a CAL FIRE grant in the future, maybe we should hold it back and let it pull those dollars down and use these for projects that have a harder time. That's one thing. And the other is, anything that is needed for more immediate preparedness for this coming fire season, or both in fire prevention and evacuation. So those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, so we did already asked CAL FIRE for a big chunk of money, and they pivoted us to planning. But I mean, all of these were in that request.
I think, as you said, Tanya, to respond to Tara's request is, we're gonna seek prioritization through the Fire Safe Council, but especially our fire fighting community and CAL FIRE for recommendations on the highest priorities. We have those experts in the room to kind of filter these projects through preparedness for this coming season and that kind of thing. We feel like we're going to we have the right people in the room anyways, to tell us where they think that might be, if we can go that direction.
I would follow up. That's a really good point, Tara. And when I'm looking at this list, I think that first of all, making sure that the Board of Supervisors does empower this group to be able to make changes, as these things change. Because looking at this list, like these 2 burns along the highways, it's possible that CAL FIRE would eventually get some crews or funding to do those. And so if they did, then being able to pivot and use those funds elsewhere. In terms of the fuels money for all these other fuel breaks, because we just applied for the CAL FIRE fire prevention grants and that got cut pretty far back, then any funding for fuels, or the main source of fuels, will be wildfire prevention grants. And that would probably start in the fall of we're in 23. So maybe a year and a half from now, or 2 years. And so I think the question is, of these, are these priorities to get treated? Some of it might happen before the peak fire season this year, but certainly in the next year, or could they wait 2 or 3 years? And then those would be the ones, Tara, that I would suggest if they could wait, we could try to apply for other funding. The only other thing I'm seeing on here that could get other funding is if the Fire Safe Council or the RCD decides to go for that California Fire Safe Council defensible space money, and we've got a bit 25,000, which is not much out of 800 for Severa to do D-space, unless you had some other D-space in here that I'm not catching. But otherwise, I think most of this would be like the most efficient way to fund it, to get it done quickly. If that helps answer that question.
That does. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Ladish.
Thanks. And Tara, you have a great point about that it's, that this 800,000 is kind of one-time funding. And something that I'm wondering about is, since that funding was meant to address particular problems, I mean, basically with the issue of alerting and what's experienced with people who live right along that county line. And so has there been work done, or is there planned to be work done to address the issue that actually gave rise to the initial proposed project for the sirens? Is there now an MOU in place with with Yolo and Solano OES to be able to do mutual alerting to people along the county line, or I'd be interested in just getting a sense of that, because I think the problem that made it so that Senator Dodd would give the money is, it's a really important one to address.
I can't answer that.
Well, listen, I'll respond a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Just because, I wrote the letter that went to Dodd to get the study. So, and that rolled up the feedback from all those sessions and the theme. And so it had higher level categories, right? That included alert, like exploring an alert system. But if we get down to the root cause of that, right, that bubbled up because people did not receive the alerts that night in a timely manner. And we uncovered that part of that was the cell phone company didn't push it through. And then also just general cell phone coverage is spotty. and that's why it was like, let's explore this, right? And then hearing, I missed the last meeting, but I heard about the presentation that if cell phone coverage is expanding, but more so for me, the larger issue that came out of those conversations was the fire, our professionals are saying like they don't think that's the most the best way to increase evacuation, right, and notifications. And so I do think that another thing that's happened since, you know, we had those LNU, since we submitted this request like forever ago to Senator Dodd, is now we have this disaster. And I know there's someone here from OES on the call, so they can correct me on anything that I'm wrong on. But we have that new disaster services council, or whatever it's called. And that's where I think there will be deeper conversations about how and when to use the alert system for both fires and like other aspects. So I think there will be a longer process to address more of that. But the fact that there's going to be increased cellular coverage that will hopefully improve it. We know that the issue that didn't push those alerts through has been resolved on the internal side. But I just think it's continued ongoing collaboration and work. And if that $800,000 to do a design that then or a feasibility study that comes back and says the same thing that we've already been told could instead be redeployed to these projects that will remove fuels to reduce the chance that we have to have evacuations, then to me, that seems like a reasonable pivot.
Mhm.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Tara. And yeah, and I think overall there are systems that work more effectively than sirens. And so I'm totally comfortable with looking at other options. With last month's presentation from T-Mobile, it sounded like, if I understood right, some of what they were thinking of putting in was more at the northern end of Lake Berryessa, and that they didn't have as solid a plan for kind of at the southern end of Lake Berryessa or near Lake Solano. So basically the kind of like the West Winters area. And so I think that'd be something to follow up on with them.
Hey, Kate, Jesse from Cape Valley again. I got the same impression as you. There isn't a wide enough customer base or like commercial interest for them in these more remote areas to significantly expand coverage. It looked like the additional, I think they had said something about an additional tower, but it didn't look like it was going to be in a position to help that that remote area outside Winters or the Cape Valley.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, so this is good discussion. I just looked at the clock. It's 5 o'clock. I'm wondering if there's a couple things we could do. I'm kind of thinking, I mean, I could send this list out and people could just vote, and we could tally the votes and prioritize it that way.
When Tracy was talking, I think a little bit about empowering the Fire Safe Council to prioritize this, because things may change and
things are going to change.
Suddenly get a sign grant opportunity coming in next Tuesday, and then we're shifting. I don't know how the Board of Supervisors will feel about that kind of level of flexibility, but Neil, you have a thought? You have your hand up.
There we go. Okay. Yes, I agree that it's kind of a stepwise process. It looks to me to be that we first need to get the authorization of the Board of Supervisors to, reallocate these funds to a variety of projects. And here are the projects that we recommend. The exact amount and the prioritization really has to come after, we get into doing some of these projects, and some of them are already underway from the initial projects that were funded and haven't really gotten started. So we don't yet know how much it's costing to do a lot of this fuel reduction activity. So, you know, there's so many things up in the air, but I think if you took it to the Board of Supervisors and asked for this type of reallocation, and then asked that the Fire Safe Council prioritize and kind of supervise this type of the individual projects.
Yeah, I would suggest someone make that motion, a member, say that to take this list to the Board of Supervisors, ask for this general reallocation with the Fire Safe Council be empowered to, you know, I can't even think of the words, to move it, change it as needed.
I would like to make that motion that we take this list to the Board of Supervisors with and remove the siren planning and ask them to empower this organization and the RCD to get more formal cost estimates and prioritize them as once the money has been transferred.
Okay, we have a motion, a motion. I'm not going to repeat it right now.
I'll second that.
I'll second. Oh, Bill, yeah, you want to, you
I'll
take it,
second.
Bill.
Got a motion and a second, but before we go to vote, specifically looking for objections and or other discussion
Discussion. Yeah.
from members. And then the other question is, do we have a voting quorum, which I'm assuming we do, but I figure we better check.
Yes, we have a quorum.
And I'll speak at once.
Could I say it's quite a ambitious request of the supervisors, and I wonder. I mean, we've got a couple of folks here who represent supervisors. I wonder if they have any thoughts on ways that might be received, and if they have any advice. Tara, do you have any advice about how we should approach the board? Is asking them for the authority to look for additional estimates and then make decisions without consulting them seems like it's asking, like they may balk at this.
Well, my recommendation is, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the background framing that these are, and here's the thing, right? All of these projects, except for that one, but it's still related, came from the CWPP. There was a robust community engagement process and the board signed off on the CWPP. So it's really pulling from priorities that were already set through community engagement and blessed by the Board of Supervisors. And so, and I think, so then saying that I mean, you're right, like they might still want it, but at the end of the day, we want to be able to be nimble. And for those closest to, these, like everyone on this call, all those projects are in the high fire prone areas. And it's from people that are closest to the issue, closest to the problem, shuffling around. So it's saying we're going to stay within these parameters that the board is blessed, which the board should bless, right? Because they're fiscally responsible for these dollars that they're spent the way that we said they would be spent, right? Although I did just think we should confirm that all these projects fall within whatever the language was in that state budget in the 4 categories. I think they do because it falls under that fuel management or fuel reduction. Most of them do in that side. But so I think the question is just asking if there's any adjustments that within this framework that it's that this body is empowered to make those decisions. And you might as well ask. And then, you know, if they've pushed back the worst case, then it comes back to them and it slows the process down, right? But I think there's a reasonable path forward on it.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. It looks like Bill has a comment.
Yeah, I just to sort of, from my perspective, these projects were painfully vetted over a very long period of time with a lot of public input. They were in the queue, but for the fact that the study of the siren system was 800 grand. Now, it's been determined at various levels in the, fire profession, the fire service profession, that's not really a feasible project. So we've already vetted these projects that are here. And I think it's a very simple transition for the board saying, hey, this big project, $800,000 feasibility study, not even to implement sirens, has been determined to be not a very good idea. However, these 12 projects, which have already been painfully vetted, add up to approximately the same amount. And we just, we would like to shift that priority away, this basically however we want to phrase it, but, disband that $800,000. Take these, however many projects are, 12, whatever, 15 projects, whatever, viable projects, and put that money there. And as the motion states, empower us to prioritize those within our discussion group who put together the CWPP. That's a long way to say, I think it's an easy sell.
Thank you. Well put.
And just to follow up on that really quickly, do I remember right that the 800,000 for the siren study was going to be the Yolo County portion, and Solano County was going to also have to put money towards it, and Solano decided they weren't going to do it. And so if we still somehow, for some reason, decided to spend 800,000 on a siren study, it would be for a siren system that would not be able to exist in completeness because it wouldn't be happening on the Solano side. Is that right? Because that seems like additional motivation to not spend 800,000 on a siren study.
This is Karen Young from Solano RCD, not speaking for Solano OES here, but just reporting what I have heard from meetings with them. I have not heard any discussion about funding being allocated for the siren study. So I would expect that is Kate, what you said is probably correct.
Okay,
They
great.
can correct me on that.
That sounds about right from what I've gathered through other meetings as well. All right, well, it's a time check. We're a little bit over time. I should have scheduled this meeting for 5:30, but anyway.
Could I just move the question?
I think
Yeah.
so. If we don't have any more really urgent, especially if anyone objecting. I don't hear that. So we got call the question. I'm going to do the same process as before, where I'll ask for aye and then wait a moment. Same with nay. We may have to get a count of some way if we're not unanimous, and we'll take that up after the initial. So I'm not going to repeat the motion. Just to summarize it, but to take this to the county board for to reallocate the study money to the projects that listed, as discussed earlier. So call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, got several, and now any opposed, nay. Everybody sounds like they can get off mute, so I believe this is unanimous. And I hear no one else objecting. So let's call that unanimous. And the next part is topics for the next meeting and setting the next meeting. We should need to do pretty quickly.
Thank you all. As always, good discussion. Really quickly, I will say that we could, so if this goes to the board on the 6th, we could talk about it more at the June 28th meeting, or we could skip that. I have a speaker from the California Department of Insurance scheduled for the July meeting. So if you want to keep talking about this in more detail in a month, we can have our meeting in June. And if you don't want to meet in July, I can reschedule that speaker. Do you guys want to keep talking about it? It'll be more in, well, I'm not gonna.
I'll just, I'm just thinking about logistics. And just thinking of a few things, and one would be, it'll take some time. If the board does approve this for, you know, the mechanics of funding to come into place, so I wouldn't predict that it would be, we'd be ready to talk about this at the June meeting, but I could be wrong. And then just the other, this is a little bit of in the weeds probably, but I would envision, you know, bringing forward scopes of work and budgets to have approved at this council. So it would be a formal, you know, process and a funds remaining update and that kind of thing. So I think we could, yeah, anyways.
Maybe just have a meeting
But
in
it may
July.
take a little time.
Well, I would certainly encourage folks to go to the June 6th meeting. I'll probably, you know, we'll probably be there, and we'll be working closely with both Kristen from OAS on this as well. So should we just skip June and have a meeting in July?
Only if there's a possibility that we can get started working on these projects, I wouldn't skip June.
But we could have the same statement. Thinking about the last meeting minutes where we may cancel the meeting if we don't have any actionable items. And that probably is, it also keeps it on the, it keeps it, you know, it comes up, people will be knowing, you know, every month there's a meeting, but it may get canceled in advance. And I don't think that'll break too many hearts.
Well said.
Let's just assume that going forward, you know, as we. Okay.
Yeah, we won't, you know, if we cancel something and people really get upset, we'll revisit it, but let's just keep that monthly thing so it stays in everybody's, oh, the end of the month, got a meeting. That was the discussion from the last time. So are we ready to adjourn?
Could I just clarify, that's going to be the fourth Wednesday?
Correct, the 28th of June.
Great.
And I have a quick question, is after the June 6th Board of Supervisors meeting, would it be possible to just send an email summary of the board's
course.
decision and the discussion?
Most
That'd be great.
definitely, yeah.
All right, ready to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.